So there's a lot of chatter, like we just said. It's Toronto lost in the first round, so obviously some things are going to change. And after what Sheldon Keefe said about what was the quote? When teams play the Leafs, they set up the game basically so that they blow it. Like, everyone knows that we're going to blow it, and that's just how they play. Let's just sit back and wait for them to make a fucking mistake.
It had serious Terry Murray choking situation vibes. Same vibes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now the idea, like, I've heard the rumor, they're going to throw the Babcock contract at Berube, and heard the Devils are in on Berube, and there's a lot of Flyers fans be like, how bad would that suck?
Are we going to talk? We're going to talk Berube. Berube, Craig
Berube.
Craig Berube.
There's like, okay, so maybe Ottawa's in, and it's like, is he really going to take the Ottawa job? Seems like he has his pick of jobs.
They've got talent.
They do. That might be the kind of team that he could take a next step with.
I don't think Ottawa is a terrible job, other than the fact that you have to deal with Ottawa.
At least it's not Melnick anymore.
Yes, exactly.
So like,
they don't have the worst owner.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
My thing is, like, there's so much Craig Berube talk. Is he a great coach?
So it's an interesting point you're bringing up, because when the Brind'Amour stuff kicked up, I tweeted out that, and it was more of like a thought experiment than anything else, but I basically was like, look, the reason why I don't think the Flyers are going to go nuts trying to throw a bunch of money at Brind'Amour and fire Torts, kick him upstairs to get Rod, which is what most of the online fans wanted them to do, which, like, fair, Brind'Amour rules. But the point I made on Twitter was, look at it this way. The Flyers for the last 5 months have been staring at a coach who is best friends with the president of hockey operations, who has won a Stanley Cup and is actually available, unlike Brind'Amour, who is not actually available. And they've been like, nah, we're good with Torts. And the response was always, well, Brind'Amour is so much better than Berube. And like, I don't disagree in that, like, if I was starting a franchise from scratch and I could pick any coach, I would absolutely pick Rod Brind'Amour over Craig Berube. However, I get the sense that there are a lot of Flyers fans who really don't think Berube, it's not even that they don't think he's better than Brind'Amour, is that they just don't think he's a good coach at all. And I don't think that's fair. I do think part of it is obviously because Berube coached here, because people found reasons to not like him because he coached here, and the Flyers didn't win shit. They got to the playoffs that one time, then he gets let go in large part because Hextall wanted to hire his own guy. Hextall comes in as GM. He has Berube as coach for 1 year. The team doesn't make the playoffs. It gives Hextall the excuse to bring in his own guy, which I'm not even giving Hextall criticism for that. I probably wouldn't hire Dave Hextall, but GM wants to go down with his own guy, not on the coach who he came in was already the coach. So I get it. But I don't think Craig Berube, I don't think Flyers fans, at least the online variety, are giving Craig Berube enough credit for the fact that, like, look, Brind'Amour's a great coach, hasn't won shit as a coach.
Thing.
Craig Berube has won a Stanley Cup, and it's not just that he won a Stanley Cup. The St. Louis Blues are a clear outlier in terms of the teams that usually win cups. Like, we've been talking about
this. We always point them out as the exception.
Yeah, we point them out as the exception. It's like, oh, yeah, well, like, generally speaking, you need a McKinnon, you need a Crosby, you need an Ovechkin. Like, you need at least an Eichel. The Blues are the one team. Like, I remember Flyers fans in 2020 were screaming at me that, like, the Flyers, the front office should not point to the Blues as their model because you can't, like, that was an aberration. That was a 1-year thing. That doesn't usually happen. And that's very true. It doesn't usually happen. You don't usually win when your best players are Alex Pietrangelo, darn good number one defenseman, but not one of the 3 best defensemen in hockey. No.
Yeah.
Ryan O'Reilly, basically Sean Couturier. Like, darn good player. Love Ryan O'Reilly.
Point, incredibly comparable.
He was very comparable to Sean Couturier. And then Vladimir Tarasenko, who wasn't even at peak Vladimir Tarasenko powers yet at that point. And you win a cup with those guys as your 3 best players. I don't think Craig Berube gets enough credit for the fact that might be the best playoff coaching job of the last 15 years when you account for the talent he had on that team. Like, cool, Jared Bednar. You won a cup with Nathan McKinnon. Neat.
I try not to, like, hold against him what he did in Philly because, as we know now, like, kind of a toxic group.
Right.
Just in terms of the relationship with coaches, always went south. every single time.
I mean, I'm not going to go that far, but I see where you're coming
I'm not saying like they're a bunch of criminals. I'm just saying like they turned on a bunch of coaches. Like a lot of dudes got fired in that span of time, including Peter Laviolette, who was awesome. Like a bunch of dudes. Yeah. I'm not really holding it against him because also like coaches get better. Your first job is rarely your best job. Like he's clearly gotten better in that 2018-19 run. Maybe the best, let's call it the best coaching job anyone's ever done. Like let's call it that. After that, 168, 113, 38. It's a 586 points percentage. It's all right. It's pretty good.
That's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
It's not amazing, but it's fine.
Lost in the first round, lost in the first round, lost in the second round, missed playoffs, fired after 28 games.
Yeah. Maybe that 2019 run was just a perfect storm, but I just think that my view is that it was miraculous that he had that Blues team playing that well, and I think he should get more credit for the degree of difficulty because that team did not have the type of star-level talent that generally accepted consensus you need to win a cup. That's the one team really since like the Blackhawks dynasty that won without superstars. And I have to say that the coach deserves a lot of credit for that. And Berube, like that was an amazing coaching job. Maybe that was just like lightning in a bottle, maybe. But it's part of his resume and it should not be, we should not diminish it and act like that was just an outlier.
That
like,
one doesn't count.
No, he did it. And it was an amazing job that he did it.
The thing on top of that kind of scares me away from coaches like him. How many coaches in all of sports win with more than one team?
It's a reasonable point.
No coach has ever won a Super Bowl with two different teams. In baseball, we have Sparky Anderson, did it with the Reds and Tigers. Tony La Russa did it with the A's and Cards. In basketball, Phil Jackson, we know all.
Of course.
Pat Riley, of course. Yeah. And then you go to some guy named Alex Hannum, who coached the 67 76ers as well as the 58 St. Louis Hawks. And then you get to hockey, Scotty Bowman, obviously.
Of course.
And then Dick Irvin in the 30s and 40s and 50s. Well, and then Tommy Gorman in the 30s and, in the 30s. Like, it doesn't happen. Yeah. If I'm going to throw the bag at someone, it's more like a Brind'Amour, like guy who still needs to get there than the dude who probably doesn't have a chance to do it again.
I mean, now you're making the case as to why John Tortorella will never win a cup with the Flyers.
I never thought he would. I don't think he's going to be the coach when that time comes. All right, before we get out of here.
We have some comments here I actually want to quickly run through. Like HC, Ryan O'Reilly is a lead. I don't care what anyone says. I think very highly of Ryan O'Reilly. I just think that the 2019-2020 version of Sean Couturier was basically Ryan O'Reilly, and that wasn't good enough.
No.
So, like, I think Ryan O'Reilly's great. I just think he was Sean Couturier. That was the value that he was providing, and they won with him. So there you go. Another one that I wanted to talk through. We had VNet Singh. The Blues were outshot something like 40-20 in Game 7 against the Bruins. Binnington was on a bender. He was. Binnington was certainly a big part of that, but if you go back and you look at the underlying metrics for Berube from January through the end of the year, that was not just Binnington playing really well. He was. They were also driving play. I remember it vividly. They were driving play like a top 5 team basically from the moment Berube took over. That was not just he was riding off the coattails of an unsustainably hot goalie. That was he got the benefit of an unsustainably hot goalie. Binnington's a fine goalie. He wasn't that good. But he also turned that team into a better than the sum of its parts play-driving machine from January through basically the end of the playoffs.
And Binnington was on one in the regular season, no doubt, 927 from the time he comes up, shuts out the Flyers, never looks back. Playoffs? 914, one shutout.
Yeah, like
he wasn't fucking J.S. Jaguar.
No, this was not this was not Tim Thomas in 2011.
Yeah, like he didn't just come in and like this is why they won. Like he was okay in the playoffs. He wasn't anything special.
We all silly like the mayor.